One thing that doesn't change is the need to work. We all have to work, and we're all looking for the next big opportunity or to keep the gig we have, to maximize the money we can make, to maximize the satisfaction that we enjoy. And a woman who is very impressive, and you have no doubt seen her on CNN or Fox or CBS News, read her in the Wall Street Journal. She has written 11 books, and we bring her on for the very first time. Her most recent book is called Employed for Life, and she is Dr. Tracy Wilen. And, Doctor, welcome to the Marc Amazon Show. How are you?
Oh, very good, and thank you for having me.
So I was fascinated by this because, everybody now is fascinated with selfies, including the President of the United States. He likes his selfies. You talk about the need for a career selfie. What exactly is a career selfie?
Well, Mark, Google published a couple of statistics that were very interesting, that we take 93 million selfies per day.
And a day?
A day.
93 million?
Yes, and we check our cell phones 100 billion times a day looking at those selfies and looking at our text messages. So I said, all that navel gazing, we should be looking at our careers. You know what I mean?
Now, so that's just in America, or is that worldwide?
This is, Google was looking at all the users of Android phones and the patterns and what they were doing. So I don't even know what the statistic is for iPhones, right? So this is very large time slots of people just taking photos, looking at themselves, contemplating on themselves, and liking themselves.
Yeah.
Well, if you really like yourself, maybe you should spend that time, right, focusing on your career.
Yeah, so basically then, instead of looking at yourself half in focus, half out of focus, take a little time and think about what you've done and I guess more importantly, what you want to be doing. And you have identified 10 emerging trends in a digital world. And talk to me a little bit about the whole aspect of digital. I mean, there's always this sense that the digital divide puts older workers at a significant disadvantage. Do you buy that?
Well, here's how I look at it is I was born into a classical world. A liberal arts degree or a high school degree was enough to get any kind of job, and they were plentiful at that time. Today we live in a technology-based world, and so you need to be more aggressive about finding jobs because there's less available in certain areas, or more skilled so that you can engage and participate in the higher skilled positions that are constantly being broadcast as open. So I don't think it's a matter of age. I think it's a matter of keeping up with technology, keeping up with the trends, and understanding how to keep employed for life, basically.
All right. With your permission, I'd like to go through some of these trends because I think they're fascinating. The first one you mentioned is that the loyal worker is being replaced by what you call the entrepreneurial employee. What's that mean?
That's right. We used to be rewarded by being loyal to a firm, and I think that's very important. What's more important today is being entrepreneurial about your job, which is basically taking ownership. Take ownership of your job and your career and continue to provide value. Firms are looking for people who can increase sales, fine-tune processes, and reduce costs. And that's what it's about today because the world is more competitive. And that's really what we're looking for in firms today.
So in other words, and we have a guy here, I don't want to mention any names and embarrass this guy, but he's been here like 30 years and he's never taken a sick day. And that's great. He's always here. He always shows up to work. But, it's questionable what he's done to advance the industry. So you're saying guys like that, there may not be those 30-year employees, the guy that brings his hard hat in the lunch pail every day. You need to add value to the position that you're in, or that position won't be there for 30 years anymore, right?
Well, the velocity for adults today in the U.S. in job transitions and changes is 4 years and 4 months. And actually, younger generation is even more frequent. So you're basically moving more than maybe you wanted to, whether if the company isn't surviving or it's transitioning or you're finding a different opportunity. So I think you have to be more aware that you're probably, if you are in a company for a very long time, you're one of the few. In fact, 40 million Americans today work part-time or do some sort of freelance work. So that reality is, swiftly going away.
That's interesting. So if you then graduate college and let's say you plan on working until you're 65, based on what you're saying, that's roughly 10 jobs that you would have between graduating college and retirement.
Well, actually, what I would say to you is the reality of working to 65 is almost out the window. You're probably going to have to work till you're 80 because most people today will live to 100.
So 13 jobs.
So you're going to have a
jobs.
lot of jobs, and you're going to out-survive many companies. So you really have to start taking ownership of the career and saying, how am I going to work for 50 or 60 years, which is very different than what my parents told me because they said you're going to work for 20 or 30 years. And your runway is much longer, and your employability means, are you healthy enough? Are you educated enough? Are you technical enough to be viable for jobs?
All right, so Dr. Wilen, then the world has changed. You don't simply plant your flag and hope to get a gold watch and retire 50 years later. You know that there's going to be moves, and many of them. How does that change your strategy from day to day in the job that you're in?
Well, the one example that you gave is actually my sixth tip, which is the tap on the shoulder is over. So longevity in a firm doesn't mean promotion anymore. So you may be looking at a firm and sitting there going, hey, I've been here 30 years. Why didn't I get promoted? Why did that new person get promoted? Or why did that younger person get promoted? And it's probably because they're contributing more, but also looking for ways to develop their skills. And there are things that you can do, making lateral moves. Some people call it a tour of duty, moving around a company, joining cross-functional teams, anything to help develop skills so you're always adding value. I think that's the main line is add value constantly so that you are promotable. And that's the difference between today and yesterday.
So the notion of staying put and, quote-unquote, paying your dues is basically dead or dying.
It's, I would say for a lot of firms, they're realizing we're very global, it's very complex, it's very technical. One person who's specialized really can't do it anymore. I need to have the combination of a generalist and a specialist. Sometimes that's called a T person, transdisciplinarity. Somebody who understands the business, has some specialty area, and actually is technically proficient so they can develop really good strategy.
Now, you may have answered my question, Doc. You mentioned as one of your keys the A player. And by A players, I think people like me and my producer, Garrett Sablehouse, we refer to ourselves as A players here. But now you need to be a T person. And you said a really long word. I don't even know if transdisciplinarity. That's the T word.
That's the T word.
It's a long word.
Let me just explain the history on it. Is that we were rewarded years ago for being generalists, because then that meant I could put you anywhere. And then we shifted HR people shifted and said, you know what, we actually really need specialists, specialized HR people, marketing people, IT people. Now today you almost need somebody who understands the business and can specialize and know all the areas of the business because it's much more complex. And let me overlay it with you probably need some technical proficiency so you make the right choices. There's a lot of choices now with technology, and you need someone who can really wrap that up and be able to contribute to the firm.
That's interesting. So back in the day, and I'll use radio because that's what I do, you would have somebody that would run a station, and it was good enough. If they understood radio trends and managing talent and putting together shows and maximizing ratings, that was good enough. Based on what you're saying, the new, better candidate for a position like that would understand how to use digital and how to incorporate that, would have a broad-based understanding of sales because sales impacts every part of the business. You would be a specialist in a regard, but you would also understand all the moving pieces and parts outside of your area of expertise.
Yes, and I think what I've observed in radio, because I've had the opportunity to go into so many studios.
It's a train wreck, isn't it?
Is that the host jumps in there and knows how to work the switchboard, and then is tweeting on the side, right, and doing all of these things because they understand how to bring that show to life and actually promote their guests at the same time as promote the station, at the same time as attract the advertisers. I mean, I think radio and media has gone through such a transformation that you really do need these T people who can really understand how to work in the business now.
So then, like, if you're a chef, it would have been good enough maybe 15 years ago to make really, really good food. But now you have to interact, you have to promote, you have to create yourself as a brand, you have to relate to the customer, and you probably have to help out front of the house, too. I mean, it's you have to be able to do a little bit of everything.
Actually, you're right. And I give an example. I know two people who thought that they want to be chefs, and they shadowed people. And I thought that was very smart. They volunteered for a summer and rotated through all the aspects, because running a restaurant is very different than cooking. One, at the end of the summer, decided that she was very ready to be a chef and immediately got a fantastic position. The other one, the gentleman actually realized he just liked to cook. and that he wasn't ready to do all of those other things that you just mentioned. So I think shadowing is actually a strategy if you're thinking about changing careers or doing something different to really understand the complexity of business today.
Dr. Tracy Wilen is one of America's foremost experts in the impact of technology on society and work and careers, and she joins us on 700 WLW. So I had a guy that was very successful with Xerox, family friend, and one of the things he said to me, he told me two things when I came out of college, and now granted this was way, way back in like 1995, but he told me, and I didn't agree with it at the time, and I'm still not sure that I do, but he said the key to success is take a job out of college, keep it for 2 years. Even if you love it, get out, go do something different, do that 4 times. After you've done that 4 times, you'll be 30 years old, and you'll have kind of an experience in life and know what different careers are. Do you agree with something like that today?
Oh, that's a tricky question. So here's how I would enhance that response. If you take a job for 2 years, make sure you achieve something, right? Metrics. Did you increase sales? Did you, reduce costs? Did you do something other than just be at a firm for 2 years? Because companies are employing people who can start at day one, hitting the ground running. So just being 2 years somewhere, you could almost be perceived as a job hopper. So I would be careful about that. I would rather be pursued by companies because I have incredible success. And if that takes me 4 years or 7 years, that may be more relevant. Here's what recruiters say. The average job tenure for people, think about 4 to 7 years.
Okay.
Definitely move on, definitely accomplish something, and show results. And it's usually related to the dollar value around, sales, increasing customers, increasing the marketplace, or reducing costs. It has to be something that a company can relate to the profit and loss statement, the P&L.
They've got the very popular series of books. Martin Yate is the author, Knock 'em Dead, Resumes, Jobs. And the key tenet of that book is in anything you do, you have to be able to demonstrate that you're making your company money, saving them money, or saving them time. And it sounds like from what you're saying, those are key tenets. That hadn't changed, and that probably never will.
Well, actually, and I agree with that. It has changed a little bit because people used to think that your firm is your family, and it's not. It's a two-way engagement. They're basically your team. It's a transaction. I work for you, and I contribute things that bring value to the firm. In exchange, you hire me, give me skills, experience, expertise, and you pay me, whether it's through cash and benefits and different methods. And it's a two-way exchange. It isn't you come to a family and then you plug in and say, I'm going to stay here for life and you're my family, take care of me like mom and dad and, set up my dates for me and my pension. So it's really changed. So I do agree with him, but I think we've shifted from the madman days to today, and it's very different.
Now, it's always been said that when you're young and starting out in business, or even if you're older and you're moving into a different field, the most important thing is to make your manager make the boss look good. Do you still believe that?
No.
No.
I remember that.
It was big.
This is how old I am. You're supposed to make your manager look good to their boss because that's how you got bonuses or promoted. That is so out the window now. Basically, you need to make your brand look good. And let me just give you a quick example. When you walk into a hotel, the first person you meet is not the hotel manager. The first person you meet is the bellboy,
right,
the concierge, the front desk, or the restaurant. And your impression of that hotel and the management team is based on those people. And so basically leaders of firms are saying, oh my God, the employees are the touch points of the firm. They're the brand. They're our brand. So make your brand look good so we look good. So that making the manager look good has sort of gone to the wayside. It's really make the company look good and make yourself look good.
And it seems like there's a movement, too, and you mentioned in your points how to get ahead in a digital world, that there was always an emphasis on all-star players, right? I mean, every company wanted to have that all-star player. Now they want all-star team leaders. And I would imagine, one, you're using your employees to develop for the future, and in so doing, you don't have that irreplaceable employee anymore.
Yes, that's correct. So in the past, it was, you would even get bonused, right, if you could catch and dive for the firm as an individual contributor. But there's been a number of studies coming out, MIT's few, Stanford, Harvard, about that actually teams are much more productive than individual contributors, given the right circumstances, good communication, good goals, good objectives. And so companies are saying, wait a minute, I don't want an individual contributor anymore. I actually want someone who performs well, but can take all of those B players on the team and make them look good too. And that's how you really get promoted today. Companies are assessing, are you good on a team, and can you lead a team to the finish line? And that's a big shift from the past as well.
Last thing I want to go through, 20 years ago, right, networking was you'd meet a colleague for a beer after work, you'd sneak out and grab a quick lunch with somebody. The digital evolution has taken just the concept of networking and completely turned it on its head. What do you think about the digital evolution, what it's done for networking, and mistakes people make in not networking properly?
I think it's done a lot. I think the digital revolution is great for networking because 75 to 85% of jobs still come from networking, and that's inside the firm or outside the firm. Here's the difference today, that firms and jobs will come and go. They really will. But people last, and they actually travel in packs. So you want to network more today, not only face-to-face, but also using your LinkedIn and your social media accounts because there's a very large network out there. And people will pull people ahead into good positions, great firms, and they will outlive, the firms and the jobs. So I think networking is even more important today and easier than in the past.
Dr. Tracy Wilen, this is great stuff. If people want to find out more about you, delve into your areas of expertise, how can they do it?
Thank you, Mark. I'm at TracyWilen.com, which is TracyWilen.com. I'm on Twitter at Tracy Wilen and Facebook at Dr. Tracy Wilen. And, of course, I'm on LinkedIn, so please network with me.
Do you take selfies?
I do a lot of career selfies. I don't navel gaze very much.
So you don't contribute to these 93 million selfies a day?
No, I don't. But I do promote opportunities such as today. So I'll make sure I promote everything about your show, which I really appreciate being on.
Beautiful. Good stuff. Dr. Wilen, I appreciate it. We'll have you on again soon.
Thank you very much, Mark.
All right. Thanks so much, Dr. Tracy Wilen. And it really is fascinating stuff. I mean, the way you look for jobs, keep jobs, hunt jobs, it's a totally different game now in the digital revolution. Let's